Function with Purpose podcast. All things health, wellness, fitness, and education through the physical therapy perspective. I am Dr. Amy Bullock, owner and founder of Fortress Physical Therapy. Fortress PT is here to serve the Charlotte metro area by highlighting the importance of how and why physical therapy should be a part of your health and wellness lifestyle. Here we go. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 2 of the Function with Purpose podcast. Thanks for joining me today, my people, my friends. Hopefully you have some awesome coffee in your hands right now, no matter what time of day. No. I think it's important to get some caffeine dose, perhaps in the morning, but maybe later on, decaf in the afternoon. I used to drink a lot of coffee back then, but I didn't understand the actual and understanding the importance of the flavor of the bean. Anywho, if you follow me, you know I like coffee. I'm up for any coffee recommendations. I do like medium or dark roast that's more chocolate in flavor, a little bit of smokiness. So if you have any recommendations, drop it in the comments or send me a direct message. I want to try it out. Okay, well, this episode of Season 7, Episode 2, just going over some two basic approaches here. Maybe this will help you within your physical therapy, or even within exercise or daily routines. Types of stretching approaches. I think there's two main stretches that people are confused about, and I'm going to get kind of on the nerd details of this. So there's static stretching versus dynamic stretching. So I'm just going to kind of briefly talk about the two and get in a little bit deeper to some of the details of both, but I think it's important to do both of these. Even within one like exercise bout training regiment time period, you know, if you have 60 minutes to work out for that day, or even within your physical therapy home exercise program, I think it's important to incorporate both. So static stretching, like what is it? Well, that's what the name is, static stretching. So holding a position, most likely for 30 seconds or longer. From the nerd standpoint, the longer a stretch position is held and really tapping into that deep range of motion around a joint, we are actually tapping into the Golgi tendon organs, GTO for short. Or in this case, so Golgi tendon organs, or the tendon aspect of the muscle-tendon connection to the bone. So think of this. For us nerds out there who understand physiology, and other physical therapists who understand this, and even kinesiologists, exercise science, when we hold an end-range position to stretch, tendons respond to prolonged tension. Then they start to what we call get into that creep principle. So lengthening starts happening. It won't happen immediately. You have to frequently dose that. So static stretching. Some advantages to this is I think it, you know, since it does tap into the end range of motion where the muscle starts turning into the tendon, which is the musculo-tendinous junction, and then the tendon connects to the bone, right? And that's how we move our joints. I think one of the main things or advantage of static stretching is it will enhance tissue pliability or tissue movement, right? As well as balancing the range of motion about a joint. I like to, specifically static stretching, I personally like to incorporate this type of stretching approach at the end of my training for the day. Right? Because when I train and you're exercising, you get a lot of blood flow everywhere that's going on, right? Literally all the way from your hands to your feet to obviously your core temperature, and everything's all nice and warmed up. So then you get into static stretching at the end of your routine, and I like to think of this as that you are directing that blood flow, which means good nutrients, ability to tap into more range of motion about a joint, and you're literally flushing and directing that blood to that specific area that you're stretching. So personally, from this standpoint, I've actually been getting into a 5-minute full saddle position. And if you're not familiar with saddle position stretching, Google it. That's where you're on your knees and your feet are underneath you. You're kind of in a heel sit position and you bend backwards and lay on the ground. So you're stretching like your quad muscles. I literally hold that position for 5 minutes and I work on my diaphragm breathing there. So that is a good static position that I've incorporated for myself because it's the reverse process of bending forward, right? I'm getting into the front aspect of my body to learn the extension position. Okay, so static stretching. Tendons respond to prolonged tension, which then indirectly taps into the range of motion about a joint. So we target the GTO for us nerds out there, right? The Golgi tendon organs, within a tendon. And personally, I like to incorporate static stretching for prolonged periods, some prolonged positioning at the end of my physical therapy training and as well as exercise training. So this leads to the flip side of the other type of stretching approach, dynamic stretching. So if static is holding a position, what do you think dynamic is? You're moving about a motion, right? But you're still kind of stretching the muscles. So, speaking of, this will focus a little bit more from the nerd standpoint. I'm a nerd, okay? I'm going to label us. This is going to focus more on that muscle spindle stretch response. So, kind of think of this for those who don't really know what muscle spindle stretch response is. It's almost like plyometrics, where, you kind of do a slow stretch. So an example of this might be a jump squat. You slowly get into a squat position and then you explode up, right? Plyometric, fast, quick, lots of power behind that. You're actually using the muscle itself, and deep inside is the muscle spindle. So you kind of stretch the muscle and it recoils very fast and you get a lot of power and drive through there. So dynamic stretching, although we don't want to get into kind of like plyometric work per se, I like to kind of think of this as getting the muscles primed via some type of body weight dynamic stretching about a specific movement pattern. So think of this, maybe on your menu today for strength training, it's back squats, right? And really trying to get into a full squat position. So an approach that I would probably do for this would be maybe I would be in a split squat position. So think my legs are on railroad tracks. One foot's in front of the other one's kind of back, almost like a lunge or a split squat. And I try to lunge forward while my front foot is on like a 6-inch step. And I'm trying to get my front foot on this knee over toe type position. What is that doing? Well, I'm trying to get into a deep hip flexion pattern, as well as a knee flexion pattern, as well as an ankle flexion pattern, just with my body weight. And I'm just kind of slowly going into that movement and out of that movement, into it and then out of it. So I'm prepping that movement pattern in a kind of like a single leg movement, and then I would repeat it on the other side. A knee over toe, front foot elevated split squat, right? So I'm just trying to lunge forward in that split squat position trying to get into deep range of motion. So I'm literally doing reps, like I'm lunging forward into a deep forward lunge while my front foot is elevated on maybe a 4 or 6 inch step, and then I'm fully coming out of that position, and then I'm getting a little bit more into that range, and then I'm coming out. So specifically, I like to incorporate this within kind of the warm-up routine of my exercise bout for that day. Right, so you're kind of priming that movement pattern. If it is squats, back squats on the menu today, then you mimic that almost squat or lunge position so that your joints can kind of get a little bit of oil in there. So that's kind of like dynamic stretching in my mind. Now, some people might think, okay, when I think of dynamic stretching, I used to think, the track athlete who would, do front kicks as they warm up and walk the 100 meter. And that is a form of dynamic stretching. That's also another approach that you can do. But I think also, priming the movement pattern is a form of dynamic stretching about a joint and then even the muscles. So hopefully that does give you a little bit of leeway on the difference between static and dynamic stretching. Both are very advantageous, but from a personal standpoint, I think static stretching is going to be a little bit more beneficial at the end of like physiotherapy sessions or your exercise training for that day, so that you can direct the blood into the already warmed up areas or joints of the body and holding that sustained position and really trying to tap into the tendon portion of those muscles that connect to the joints. And then on the flip side, dynamic stretching, I like to think of that as, incorporating that into a warm-up routine and kind of almost priming that movement pattern for the day. If it's deadlifts, within your warm-up, you might do walking, what we call walking death marches. So you take a step and you literally just kind of bend forward and try to touch your front foot. Next step, same deal. You can Google it. You can look it up on YouTube, what a death march is. I probably have it there with some kettlebells. You can just look on the Fortress YouTube channel. Anywho, so yeah, static versus dynamic stretching, very important to incorporate both. But I think static, personally, should be a little bit more saved for the cool down routine, while I think the dynamic stretching should be incorporated into more of. That's a wrap for today's episode, Function with Purpose podcast. For more information on this episode, please check out the show notes within your podcast app. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, or drop your comments and questions below. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thanks for the listen. Pursuit, precision, purpose.